It's my pleasure to introduce our next guest that's going to be with you here training for the next hour. So we have many conversations, both during the day and after 7 p.m. about what we're doing in the non-performing loan space, right? So we talked about having partners and vendors that are strategic partners. Our next guest speaker is with Trustee Corps. He'll go through and tell you the story about what kind of services they offer and the default services that they provide in the 13 states for foreclosure as a foreclosure trustee. Matt and I have been friends, I guess, for a little over a year now, right? Yeah. And we both invest in non-performing loans as well, specifically junior liens, and he'll go through and talk about that a little bit for us. And he not only has his work that he does with Trustee Corps and a special default services unit, but he also has the work in his own portfolio of loans as well. And so he's going to go do a deep dive. We have a two-part discussion. So today he's going to go over due diligence. Then he'll have another session back in here tomorrow, same time. So we encourage you to come on back and take part in that. Matt's going to go through this, and then he'll open it up for, I'm sure we'll have plenty of questions and answers. You all have that opportunity to do so, and he'll get those answered for you. And he'll just come up to the mics, and he'll be happy to answer those to the best that he can. And if he can't, then he'll get back to you. But most 99.99% of the time, he has some sort of answer for you. And before I get to that, I just want to make one other quick announcement. David Polio, are you in the room? Okay, great. David, will you stand up real quick? Come up here to the front, and then we're going to get going. So David actually came all the way out from New Hampshire. He leaves tomorrow at about noon, going to head back. So David will be here until then. I just wanted to get you familiarized with his face. He's going to come over. We see you put a sign out there in front of the Portofino room, just right outside the ballroom. It says Trade Desk. If you're interested in getting signed up with his company, he has direct access to product as a servicer. Okay, when people are looking to move their product, they go to him to move it out. Okay, so he's with the Servicing Corporation, SNSC.com. He has non-performing first, reperforming, subperforming first, REO, some junior paper, and that's what I had him come all the way out here. He got a ticket, even registered, and then I was like, oh my gosh, I just heard you speak. Will you please give them an opportunity with the product that you have? And so what he's going to do is you can sign an NDA with him, give him your business card, and he'll take you through the process of how you can work with him and his organization and get access to the product and start looking at that, going through the due diligence, and hopefully funding some deals. Does that sound pretty awesome? Great. So David will be back there periodically through the different sessions and on the breaks in the trade desk room, which is right across the hall here, the sign there. And so please connect with him, ask any questions that you have, and we're grateful for you coming out, brother.
I appreciate it.
All right, thank you.
It's more of an information about how the process works. It's not going to be just signing an NDA.
Yep.
I can send you the NDA through an email a lot easier, but I just want to get a feel for how the trading desk works so you feel comfortable going through a transaction.
And we'll keep it simple. Sound good? All right, thanks, David. So I thought that was important. I didn't want to miss that because it is a short window of opportunity that he's here, and I wanted to give you guys that opportunity and some of the stuff that we have access to, and as we build relationships. One of my best relationships that I have, too, is I consider Matt one of my go-to people when I have hard questions on what we're specifically doing when it comes to collecting and getting a workout done with these borrowers, okay, as well as our staff, too. And so he's been very gracious and kind to come out and train for the next 2 days, as well as Rand Johnson will be here on Saturday delivering a special keynote. And so we're excited for that. And so I'm going to turn the time over to him. Please give him a huge round of applause and warm welcome to Mr. Matt Kelley. Thank you, brother.
It is a pleasure to be here. I like this. And by this, I'm referencing the note game. This is one of the things I do for fun. I'm here speaking in a couple different contexts. First of which, with Trustee Corps and Special Default Services. We're known by a few other names as well, mysteriously. But what I mean by that is, we're as a foreclosure trustee, we've been doing this for many years. Foreclosure is a tool, and that's one thing that Rand Johnson will be here on Saturday speaking extensively in regards to. But one of the reasons why I'm up here is because I believe in what we do. I invest personally in notes. We've been doing this for many years. We've invested in commercial notes. We've invested in first mortgages. Currently, and personally, I'm heavily invested in second notes. We found that our returns are very, very good with those, which is exactly why we will do that, and we continue to do that. And we do very well at it. I'm here to tell you some of the ways in which we've found to make money at doing this and be very successful. As I believe reputation is very important. There's many of those within this room that are currently heavily involved in the note industry. I encourage you to ask them about myself, as I hope that they will all tell you their experience with us, as well as some of the scenarios and questions which are posed. Today it's very interactive. You are encouraged to ask questions, but there are rules. And I do want to go over those just for a moment, as again, those that know me know that I'm a fan of rules. I am not an attorney. I am not here giving anyone legal advice. I'm more here telling you what I do personally on the notes in which we acquire. You are responsible for your level of knowledge and education. You are encouraged to ask questions not only during the question and answer period, but I will be available to you, as I do have a business cell on me at all times. I am in the office very regularly, and email is a fantastic manner of communication. And I can answer just about any question you could possibly have. Today, and this presentation is an outline, so you are encouraged to take notes. If you feel like taking pictures of the screen, you can feel free to do so, but I'm also very happy to email you a copy of this presentation and additional information that you may request. So we're going to be talking the importance of due diligence. How much does this process cost? That is various sections from outsourcing various components of the actual due diligence process, but also foreclosure and other areas as well. What I do on my personal notes to get homeowners to come to the point of working these things out one way or another. There are 4 very important questions which I think every individual should ask themselves on all the notes in which one acquires. Various different aspects of due diligence, as I do want to encourage that a lot of this due diligence process, it's a thought process. It's expanding your mind. The effects of foreclosure and what you actually need to worry about is there's many individuals within this room that have anxieties and stresses which may not necessarily exist, or perhaps can be there to assist you within a variety of ways. There are some important things to know that are perhaps gold mines or landmines, and we'll be able to identify some of those. And of course, as once again I do want to stress, you are encouraged to ask questions. So most of these works in the non-performing note section, all the money is made, or I believe, and our experience has been, is that the most of the money that you will make is made before the actual purchase. As we operate on yields and returns, as we have our expectations in line in advance before ever buying a note. Knowledge is power, which is why I'm here. You will get what you pay for. We'll discuss that in terms of the various products that are out there. So how much this actually costs? Well, it does vary. Second mortgages do tend to be very cheap. First mortgages cost a lot more. Commercial ranges quite a bit. Is it possible to buy a second mortgage in Michigan with a non-performing first for almost absolutely nothing? You are absolutely correct. You have just spent way more money on that. As there are certain states in which we really prefer not to operate in, or to buy notes in those areas. Will we buy there? Absolutely, as long as it's worth it. But I know of other individuals that love certain areas that we don't. I'm not here to tell anybody that anything that we do is better than what someone else does. Maybe it's just a little bit different. Everyone has their preferences, and I encourage you, strongly encourage everyone within these rooms to do what you love, do what you like. You'll find out that the results and returns tend to be significantly higher as a result. How many notes could you handle if they were free? You will encounter individuals within this room that may be able to talk a big game about handling a lot of different notes. Well, if 10,000 notes were to fall in one's lap, maybe even if they were free, that's a lot of work to be able to handle. There is specialty and an extreme benefit as we have grown throughout the years from being just myself and investing in a few notes to now we have hundreds of notes, or in the process of acquiring significantly more than that. As one of the popular phrases is, stay small and take it all. There is an extreme advantage, which I encourage you to do, to acquiring good notes in a variety of ways. But we have found benefit in certain notes that others did not see and have profited immensely as a result of it. Is your note secured is one thing that is very important. Are you getting what you actually think that you are getting? And we'll be going over that. Commercial versus residential, these are treated profoundly differently within a variety of ways. I'm here today to talk mostly about residential notes. First position versus second position. Anybody in here ever bought a second note and found out that it was a first? For those of you that didn't raise your hand, look at the people that did raise their hand, and I hope you'll find out some of what they did to be able to find out exactly how it is that took place. There is performing notes and non-performing notes. One can buy a note that is already well seasoned, that has already been paying on a regular basis, and you can buy it at a discount and get some great returns. Or like ourselves, you can get your hands a little bit dirty, do a little bit of the work yourselves, and see if you can increase those margins a little bit more. Foreclosure and bankruptcy, as there is something to be very well aware of as to whether or not the first mortgage is actually in foreclosure. What risks exist in regards to a second lien? Is it possible to get wiped out? Yes. Is it possible to lose money at doing notes? Absolutely. But knowing more than the next person. There are state-specific requirements, as there's not all these other letters that we're going to talk about, FDIC, TILA, RESPA, and quite a few other ones that exist out there. There's a lot of people that are your friends that you may not even know about. Ask questions, ask an attorney, ask your trustee. Ask the people that are going to have to deal with this a little bit farther down the road in the event that the homeowner does not respond to the first letter or first phone call that one may make. And how much information you are provided. Notes do range considerably when it comes to the purchase. We have bought notes for very cheap, and we've bought notes almost at 100%. We will buy notes, and I'm being very honest at this, we'll buy notes for almost any price, as long as it pencils out. There are really no bad prices, there's only bad notes. Or there's no bad notes, there's only bad prices. I apologize about that. So what I mean by this is there's generally a price tag associated with a note in the event that it's nicely packaged, all the title information, their credit report, all the information in the world can absolutely be handed to you with a nice pretty little bow. But please understand, managing one's expectations is there's probably a little bit higher of a cost associated with that. But there's also ways in which one can find out the vast majority of the information which may be provided to others as to exactly what's going on and what's taking place, knowing more than the next person. So what I do on my own personal notes, in the event you are curious, because there's going to be a lot of people up here today talking about different strategies. Well, our strategy is very simple, as we don't tend to overcomplicate things. Is for those in the room that acquire quite a bit of notes, I can guarantee that they've heard that they're not, when the homeowner talks to them, you're not the first person that sent them a letter. That's true. But you may be the first person to do something about this. So we traditionally send the homeowners a letter outlining some of their options, letting them know that they are in default. The requirement of this letter and what that letter says is often outlined within the deed of trust. The other thing is that there are state-specific letters. In certain states require those letters to say very specific things. If you don't know what they are, that's okay. Ask your trustee, ask your attorney. And once it gets to the time of foreclosure, they very often send you a form to fill out. Just read the code section and see if you actually did exactly what was supposed to be done. If you didn't, maybe it just takes a little bit more time. Maybe you just have to send another letter. Traditionally isn't the end of the world. So I send them a 30-day letter, unless otherwise required by law. And sometimes we'll send them other notices. Guess what? We've sent letters dressed up as party invitations. We send stuff via FedEx as it has over a 98% open ratio. Guess what? State doesn't require, and law does not require us to send it via FedEx, but we found it to be fairly effective. We've called homeowners. We've called them on weekends. We've called them later in the evening. We've called them extremely early. We've called them in a lot of different ways. But again, we found that only has a certain percentage of success. And if they don't respond to one letter, last week I did get a call from a homeowner. As we sent him a letter, we said after 30 days he's going into foreclosure. 31st day he was in foreclosure. Called us up the next week. Well, I only got one letter. My question to him was, how many letters would it have taken? It worked out quite well. Door knocker. Rand Johnson will be here on the weekend, on Saturday. Rand Johnson personally goes out and knocks on every single door, on all the notes that he has. He travels a lot, and he writes off a lot. I unfortunately do not have the time to door knock. I don't really door knock, quite honestly. I don't even use services to door knock the vast majority of the time. As I've found that on the letters that I send out and the phone calls that I make, usually the homeowners that I don't really care if they call me or not. Perhaps there's equity in the property. There's a lot of other exit strategies, which we'll be talking about tomorrow, on how it is that I can make a statement that I don't really care if I get a workout with the homeowner or not. There's a lot of avenues and exit strategies in which may be utilized within this industry. So stick around. But I do as I say. If I say I'm going to do something, I will do it. So yes, ask me a question, I'll give you an answer. And why they said only 99% of the time? Because if I don't know, I'll find out or direct somebody to the most appropriate source. But if we say we're going to put them in foreclosure, we do. Once we buy a note, do we immediately send out letters and everything else? No. I wait till I actually know what I have. We weigh and we measure things. Is the first performing or not? Do we have the assignments and we have the ability to proceed? And we make sure we know exactly what we're getting into before the ball starts rolling. But we do send additional courtesy notices for those that are a little bit more underwater that we really would want to work out with the homeowner. You bet. We'll answer them questions. We'll tell them and have to drag them through, as I've worked with homeowners, to assist them in the process of getting a modification with the first. I've explained to homeowners their options as knowing more than the next person some of the local programs that are available to them and directing them to them. I've found that homeowners tend to be a lot more responsive when they actually know about some of the local programs before they call them, as many of them are terrified of being told no, that they can't get a modification, these things can't happen, they won't happen, whatever else. You may feel like a therapist at times, but the good news is you're not. You're a bank, and you are encouraged to act like one. We're there to work with homeowners. In the event that they do show good faith effort, we traditionally respond in kind. But ultimately, the bottom line is one of two things happens, is either we get the property back or we get paid. Got to go to the mic. There is one. There's one over there. Your other right. You can also shout it out. I'll repeat it.
So how does your strategy on foreclosing different when there is no equity and you got an uncooperative borrower that's just just thumbing their nose at you? Do you string it out, or do you actually go through with the foreclosure? What do you do?
Absolutely. If we say we will foreclose on the property, we will. We'll be going over that scenario much more extensively in regards to tomorrow in terms of exit strategies, as there's many that are infinitely advantageous in a variety of ways, but if we say something, we will do it. It is absolutely possible to foreclose on a property and advantageous to do so within many different circumstances. But there's not only the actual value of the property, but the valuing of the homeowner. As Sabrina will use a little bit later today when she speaks, the statement that there's a heartbeat in every home. Absolutely. And that foreclosure can be a motivating tool. It can be there's something to work with the homeowner to establish timelines. Is the worst thing that we want to happen with these notes is absolutely nothing. But the three ways to succeed in how you do it is knowing the right people. I said there's no bad notes, only bad prices. Is knowing the right sellers, those that do sell notes and that can sell the quality and quantity in which one is actually looking for. Knowing a diversity of individuals, as if you're wondering about are these notes still out there, in which quantity, will it always be there? From our experience, and as Walter talked a little bit earlier, This is not a new industry. This is something that has been around for a very long time and will continue to be around for a very long time. But we have seen the flow of notes change directions as that different sellers tend to pick them up at different times. So it's not so much of just having one avenue, but a multitude of resources in which to draw from. But also vendors, as we're trustee corps. They have an army of attorneys who work in 9 different states. And we can answer almost any question that one could possibly have, even in states in which we do not operate. As again, I personally hold notes which in a lot of those states, which is again separate from the trustee portion. But a good attorney or trustee is often worth their weight in gold. But also know your competition. We've shared lists with a lot of different individuals, shared information. We've done joint partnerships and ventures with other individuals, as sometimes it's better to not bid against somebody, but also bid with them on tapes of pools and notes and see what opportunity arises, that you may acquire a giant pool of notes and see that some don't exactly fit your criteria, and being able to sell some of those individual notes to some other individuals in the room. It's amazing what opportunities arise, as that's being in the right place at the right time. Be ready. Opportunities exist all the time, all over the place. Again, be ready. Do as you say as you do. Knowing more than the next person, that's what we're talking about today. So the 4 questions. Will I get paid? When will you get paid? How will you get paid? And how much will you get paid? Are the questions that everyone should ask on every note that one evaluates. As to the homeowner, there's emotional equity. This may be evaluated in the condition of the home. If you're like myself and buy notes nationwide, we do not have the ability to drive by every single property, but Google Maps is pretty darn good. It's great to look at title and see if there's any waste or abatement liens. Is it in a good neighborhood? Look at the rest of the houses around there. So the location and also community. As to the skip trace and credit reports can show, as this will talk a little bit more about, you'll see some of their shopping habits. Some of the other things in which this homeowner involves themselves in. Are they current with the vast majority of their payments, or is this something in which they're delinquent? Do they have medical liens from a few years ago? This is something that happened, and perhaps that issue has been resolved. Are they 70 years old? I'm not sure if they're going to be able to take another payment. Or is perhaps they're within their 30s or 40s, prime working years, in which they're still significantly more involved, and of course an extra little payment does not seem like it'll be the straw that breaks that camel's back. Bankruptcy. Okay, everyone's going to start asking questions, which I understand Michelle Gadati will be talking about on Saturday, but have we been stripped on liens? Yeah. A lot? Absolutely not. We very aggressively pursue our bankruptcies whenever that does take place. But just one story is that we did get stripped on one lien. Homeowner trashed the property, came back with a low valuation. We did get stripped. But earlier this week, we received a $177,000 check because we were stripped. But we're still a creditor. We're still owed money, maybe unsecured. But that homeowner happened to get a large inheritance, which went straight to the creditors. I do believe that good things happen to good people and bad things tend to happen to bad people. That person did trash their house. That person we had many conversations with. They told us in advance that they were going to file bankruptcy several times. We filed the notice of default, proceeded along those lines. They told us they'd file bankruptcy. We kept checking. They didn't. We filed the notice of sale. Right before the sale, they did file bankruptcy. We did get stripped. The bankruptcy is still open. It's a Chapter 13. Takes a long time. And again, they happen to get that inheritance, and we happen to get paid as a result. Not the most common of scenarios, but that's just one of our stories. Many of others have turned out very well. In bankruptcy, I'll sum it up for you. Very often, if the homeowner doesn't want to pay you, that's fine. They can pay the bankruptcy trustee and they'll pay you. So the credit report, again, it shows very often if the homeowner tends to be current on their payments, if they're good about paying, when they pay, things along those lines. This is a good indication of how hard one will have to fight to be able to get this homeowner to pay attention. Is again, you'll very likely not be the first person to be able to send them a letter to say the things that you will say, but you may be the first person to do something about it. Senior lien verification, know before you go. I love Surfline. So senior lien verification, knowing what's taking place. Credit report is nice, but personally, we consider credit reports a secondary form of verification, as they can share a wealth of information, but it is not necessarily accurate. Credit reports do not always talk about a deferred balance, if one exists within the property. That might be good to know what you're getting into. And it may not necessarily be something a public record. Credit reports are great as they give a lot of information, but again, we like to verify things. So it is possible to call into many of the senior lenders that are out there, as they have an automated phone system and acquire much of the information that one could possibly want via that way. You may not necessarily know everything, but it's often just knowing more than the next person. And please note that everything that I'm talking about, I have stories about it. I have examples. I'm happy to share them, but that's why they limited me to less than 1 hour. And their ability to pay, if you think they actually can do anything about it. Bankruptcy. Bankruptcy is like reading a novel, and I do stress that. As with the bankruptcies, they tell you how much they make, what job they have. All the other information that could possibly be out there is often revealed within the bankruptcy documents. But it may be paired up with other information, like the information of title. Did they file bankruptcy to stay a foreclosure proceeding? Was it a planned default? They planned on doing this. They could have paid their bills, but they didn't. They're trying to do something with it. What was their intent? Even within those documents, very often there's something called a notice of intent. They talk about in the bankruptcy documents why they're filing, what they're doing, what effect did it have, if any, especially upon your lien. So that's what it did. As to the title, gold mines and land mines. Some of the gold mines, it's not necessary to do this, but it is common practice, especially within the institutional lenders, to record a modification of the deed of trust. If you want to know their terms, all you have to do is the document's a public record. We're going to go over how you can do that as well. But knowing if they've ever been foreclosure before, are they in foreclosure regularly, or have they never been in foreclosure before in their life? Both are very important. If they've been in foreclosure regularly, guess what? You're probably going to have to do. To get them to respond, you may have to throw them in foreclosure as well, just like the first mortgage had to do. But also judgments. Knowing if this individual has had a lot of problems, and there tends to be a lot of other individuals in which these people owe money to. Maybe it's a little more likely they're going to file bankruptcy. Maybe you don't really care, because if you foreclose on it and those judgments are behind you, you'll wipe them out. But if those judgments happen to record before your deed of trust, that may be problematic. And hard money or private lender loans. We love seeing assistance liens that are out there. It can be junior deeds of trust, in which they may have used hardest hit funds or some local programs or organizations, or hit up a hard money lender, which some people in here certainly are, and you've gotten those phone calls, and received money as a result of it. We love those ones because those are individuals that know how to utilize their resources and what some of the other programs that may be out there to assist them. And perhaps they're willing to do the same even for ourselves. So will you get paid in evaluating the property, the condition of title and collateral? As this is secured versus unsecured, is your lien even there? As I know there are people in the room, and I will not point them out, that have bought liens thinking that it would be a good deal, and all of a sudden you just bought nothing. It's an unsecured lien. Whether this was wiped out by a senior foreclosure action, or perhaps at some time within the past, that lien was stripped through a bankruptcy action. Or better yet, while that may have taken place, that homeowner did not complete the bankruptcy, and therefore one is still a secured creditor. As just because it's of record may not necessarily mean that it's there. Probably is, though. Your lien position. Are you in first position, second position, or fifth position? How you find this out is not the credit report. I strongly encourage oneself to either order a title report from an abstractor or a title company. I'm happy to provide some individuals in which we use, as we do use these products ourselves. Do we do it all the time? No. As we very often will go to the county recorder website. If anybody in here uses companies, let's say like Title 365 and a couple other ones for free title reports, you get what you pay for. I do not suggest that you rely on those. Knowing more than the next person, There's a lot of different ways to find out certain things, one of which county recorder site, what's out there? Is there notices of default? Is there been a trustee sale taking place within the past? Active foreclosure, things like that. Adverse liens, liens for waste, abatement. Are there good liens out there? Are there some mechanics liens? Or is there a lien recorded from an insurance company for improvements that have been done to the property for a particular reason? And equity, is there any? Hey, guess what? Zillow's great. It's not exactly spot on, but it's an easy way to compare to some other recent sales. Are there a lot of foreclosures in the area? No, Zillow's not 100%, but there's still a lot of information out there. So the condition of it is there's something I do want to stress called constructive notice. And that means if it's of record, it's there. If it's not, as a foreclosure trustee, we are required to send out certain notices. In the event one were to purchase a property, you'll receive something called an assignment of deed of trust, or some other document that sounds just like it. That is the transfer of title to you. In the upper left-hand side, it says recording requested by and mail to. That's just not the return address of that assignment of deed of trust, but as a foreclosure trustee, in the event I'm foreclosing on a property, I'm legally required to send notice to that address. Just because you didn't get notice is not my problem at that point. I'm required to send notice to the address that's on the upper left-hand side of that assignment of deed of trust. So on the notes that I purchase personally, it's usually prepared by somebody else. I put a nice little sticker over their name and put my name and address. I'm now going to get noticed in the event that senior lien proceeds with a foreclosure action. So constructive notice is making sure that your lien is there. So the lien position, this does vary by state, but essentially it's universal. It is a recording by time. Is in the event one's lien is recorded before another one, you're in front of that lien. It's like standing in line at the movie theaters. You never worry about who's behind you. You only worry about who's in front of you. Oh, that's nice. You don't have to worry about a lot of the other stuff. Just the first lien in the event one buys the second lien. What do you have to worry about in the event you're a first mortgage? Oh, good Lord. It's a pleasure to be here. Taxes. That's about it. Not much else. If you're a first mortgage, you're the one in control. Only in certain states and only under certain scenarios. And as when we get to the HOA slide, there's a little asterisk next to one of them. I bet you can guess the state. It says subject to litigation, as there is a lot of litigation ongoing to that recent change that took place. No surprise there. Some other things to take place, IRS liens, state tax liens. It's good to know. Just because the taxes are paid may not necessarily mean that they are paid. We do check taxes. We do want to know if the taxes are getting paid. It's even better to know if those taxes are being advanced by a senior lender to protect their security in the property. That's through the automated phone banking, and in the event when we're able to order a payoff statement via those or hear some of the information over the phone, it's very good to know exactly what one is getting into, as the credit reports very often report the unpaid principal balance, but not necessarily interest and late charges and other things that may have accrued. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. I don't want to find out the hard way. Lis pendens, this is constructive knowledge that there is a current foreclosure action or some other legal proceeding taking place. Abstracts of judgment may also attach to other properties, so this homeowner may be getting sued on something and it's just attached to everything. May not be the property that you hold the note on, but it's better to know. Affidavit of death, that's one way to find out if they're still alive. You can also skip trace a few other things. Maybe the credit report will state it. So foreclosure, again, this will be talked extensively on Saturday by Rand Johnson, but foreclosure eliminates liens, not debt. Worst case scenario, one gets stripped, not quite, you're still owed the money. Is it possible to pursue somebody as a wiped out junior lender? Yes. In some states, is it possible to obtain recourse, which means you may foreclose on the property and sue the homeowner? Yes, that is entirely a possibility. Are there people out there that exclusively do unsecured liens? I think they're nuts, but yeah, there's some people out there. I don't think they could fill this room, but there's some of them that are out there. Foreclosure wipes out all recorded judgment liens junior to your deed of trust. Stand in line at the movie theaters. Don't worry about who's behind you. Just worry about who's in front of you. That's their problem. So if the first mortgage attempts to foreclose and wipe you out, can you protect your security? May you advance funds? That is one option, as this is a lot about options. Exceptions, yep, property taxes, HOA dues. We talked about that. So HOA liens, some of the things to be aware of. As I do want to stress, HOA liens in some cases will not be wiped out by a foreclosure action. Who should you ask to find out? As I'm not going to go over all 50 states, perhaps the person doing the foreclosure work. Those that may deal with this after the fact in escrow. There's an army of people there to assist you. California, in the event one forecloses, you owe HOA dues from that point going forward. Nevada, notice the little asterisk? They didn't really have a good asterisk in the PowerPoint I was doing, so that's a funny asterisk, but either way. Pending litigation and the interpretation to lien priority status. A lot of banks like Bank of America have not been happy about the fact that they've been wiped out by an HOA foreclosure for a few $1,000s, and they had a $500,000 first. So we'll see what happens with that litigation. But in the interim, they did rule that an HOA in the state of Nevada has super lien priority status and can wipe out even a first mortgage, let alone a second. But when buying a note, I think that's a good indication if they're not paying the HOA, maybe they won't pay you either. But also Florida, mortgage recorded before the laws were enacted, July 1st, 2008 for HOAs, 1992 for condo owners associations. Then the lien priority date does not go all the way back to the recordation of the CC&Rs. Like I said, I'm happy to email this to you. So when will you get paid? Managing your expectations. These are demand letters, courtesy, and statutory. I just said I'd send out basically one notice, unless required by state law. Then we'll send out the appropriate notices and the appropriate timeframes and everything else. But we usually give them the required notices. We'll give them a courtesy demand, very often 30 days. That's on a performing first. If they're not performing, I don't think another demand letter is going to do it. The first is already sending them notices. We may proceed immediately with foreclosure. We want to get there quicker, faster, and more efficiently than a first mortgage. As Wells Fargo, Aqua, and a lot of entities along those lines, they're like turning a battleship. They're big, slow, and once they start going, they don't really stop. But I think I can be bigger, or faster, and more efficient than them. And we have the profits to show for that. So we initiate foreclosure, whatever it's called within that state, very often notice of default, whether it be a notice of sale or even a trustee sale. As each of these greatly increases our return rates, as we tend to have less than 10% of individuals call us as a result of a demand letter that's sent out, even less come to a workout as a result of it. But once we get to the notice of default, the numbers drastically and exponentially go up as it increases the volume. Foreclosure is a tool, because one initiates foreclosure. Is it a requirement that one finish it? Absolutely not. It is possible just to initiate the first legal action and then stop it there. Some people do. Some people do that and then just sell their notes. Some people quit too early. As we'll do a notice of sale, there is something to it when a notice is stuck on a homeowner's door that says, we will sell your house. When their realtor friend tells them, they can't do this. And then we do, legally, in full knowledge of all parties that are involved, with nothing being hidden in any way, shape, or form. Can a deal be reached once the property goes to sale and the sheriff is knocking on their door to get them out? Yes, we've gotten a lot of calls at that point. That all of a sudden they do want to come to their senses and start paying some money to be able to keep their house. Absolutely, that has taken place. So additional strategies, went over that. And this is some of our contact information, as I did promise it. I also included that of Rand Johnson. We are available to you. We do encourage you to give us a call, to ask questions that you may possibly have. But this is a very simple process, as complicated as it may seem. I do apologize, I did forget to mention something. I also have business cards, so everyone with your phone out, you can also just ask for that. I'm happy to provide it to you. As an email or phone call away, as many will testify to. But this is a very simple process that if I can do it, I promise you can too. There are things in which one may have anxieties about. There's a lot of people in this room willing to help you out that have gone through or experienced those exact same anxieties and stressors. You are limited, as we'll talk about extensively tomorrow, as to you're limited only by your imagination and the law. There are certain compliance guidelines in which one needs to do, but a lot of it is very common sense, extremely common sense. And as long as you're acting in good faith, that traditionally works to one's extreme advantage. Is there are a lot of people, and I encourage it getting into this, that really do want to help homeowners. But I really don't think just giving something away is really helping individuals out. That this is something that some people may earn, and that there is a price tag attached to it. And that will vary between scenario and individual, but there are a lot of ways in which one may profit from this immensely within a variety of circumstances, but also do a lot of good, as I do believe good things happen to good people, and there's a lot of people that are here that may not be here next time. But there's certain reasons for it, and I believe the biggest one is due diligence, knowing what one is getting into. Some resources. If you want to find out what's on title, county records. The vast majority of the time they're available. The vast majority of the time they're free. It's out there. Having the time to be able to look at it takes me a few minutes to look at it. It will take you longer. You will take time to get familiar with some of these documents, and if you don't know what they mean, the great part is you just read them. And they'll explain exactly what they are and what they're in relation to. Whether or not it's something to worry about, you can always call, perhaps myself. We're not going to go over every scenario, but you can always ask those that'll have to deal with this later down the line, like a foreclosure trustee or the foreclosure attorney, if it happens to be a judicial state. If you want to know when you're going to get paid, as we'll talk about tomorrow, not necessarily the if you're going to get paid, which is mostly today, but if you want to know when, well, certain states have a really long timeline. New Jersey, New York, it can take a couple of years to foreclose. If you look at some of the documents of public record and you see that the individual is or was in foreclosure, you're not really sure which one it happens to be. If you look at the documents that are of public record, like the foreclosure ones, we're required by law to have our contact information there. Call them. You're a third party. Is the foreclosure still active and open? The answer is going to be yes or no. Are you entitled to more information than that? Not really, but I don't think you really care about any other information beyond that. If it's an active and open foreclosure, maybe you have something to worry about. Maybe you don't. We'll talk about that tomorrow. And if not, then you can do a little additional due diligence, whether it be through the phone banking, their credit reports, to be able to figure out, why is this person not in foreclosure? Are they in an active workout with the first mortgage? There's a lot of other scenarios. Has there since been a recorded modification as to the senior mortgage? All are good questions. But I did promise some time for individuals to have questions. So this is your opportunity, this is your moment, and you are strongly encouraged to ask them, because I know there's a lot more, and I've been asked questions all day and all morning, and I do expect some a little bit later on. If you do want to ask your question, I encourage you to stand up, walk up to the mic, and ask it so some other individuals can hear.
Hi, how often do you use an O&E report versus a full title report?
Very rarely. We traditionally get title reports, and I mean me personally, in the circumstances where we do not have access to the county records. Either it's not cost effective to get access to that particular county, or just for time management skills in terms of us acquiring a great volume of notes within an extremely short time frame, and that we're given a lot of time frame to look at a tape of notes and to determine whether or not that answer will be yes or no. We'll traditionally order title reports within that scenario. But it's basically the documents of record, and we interpret them from there.
So do you ever order O&Es? Is there any situation where you would want to get that versus a full title report?
Usually we get a limited title report. Additionally, in the event we acquire the note and initiate foreclosure, the foreclosure trustee will provide either a litigation guarantee or a trustee sale guarantee, which is, again, a full title report.
Hey, Matt. My name's Mark. We work in Las Vegas and have a little bit of an unconventional approach to note buying.
I like those.
So I'll go do the work. I'm just looking for some suggestions based on your experience level. So we buy subject to properties or acquire subject to properties, and then we basically work to discount the notes the first and or the second. They're usually massively non-performing 2, 3, 4 years. Curious if you were me, what would be some creative aspects or ways that you would resourcefully find contacts for the banks that could be the decision makers? That's really our biggest obstacle because there's so many banks.
I hope there's people in here that just in your mind would be able to raise your hand in the event you have no clue what he's talking about. What he is referencing is he's not buying a note. He's buying the property from a homeowner, usually by sending out letters to homeowners, sometimes by the thousands, to be able to generate a few different calls from people that are willing to sell the property to you. Perhaps it's massively underwater, because I wouldn't imagine that the people that have $500,000 in equity in the property are going to sell it to you for the price you want to offer
Not
them.
frequently.
There we go. His exit strategies are a little bit different than the notes, which again, exit strategies tomorrow. So please note, a lot of the times I'm trying to limit the things that I'm saying, because I'm well known for if somebody asks me the time, I'll just tell them how to make a clock.
Yeah.
So
I
for
can hear what
yourself,
you don't
your
say,
biggest
so-
problem is that you can't get a hold of the first mortgage, and sometimes even the second mortgage, because maybe it's been assigned to you and your assignments aren't recorded and he doesn't know who you are. But that aside, getting somebody on the other end of the phone that can say yes or no. He's not the homeowner, at least in regards to the obligor on the first mortgage. He's the owner of the property, not the debt. So they're not talking to you on that. You may get authorization from the homeowner to speak to that effect. I talked to somebody earlier about this.
We do.
Yeah, I know. That's good. So basically, you're going to talk to them about a short payoff, as that's your only option. Most often, they're going to say no, because in the event they do a short payoff, they have to charge off the rest, and the homeowner gets a negative tax consequences as a result, while you gain the benefit. So you're going to find immense difficulties doing so. One of the only options you're going to have is doing an escrow, and that's escrowing the property, doing a short sale as you're the authorized third party on the borrower's behalf, in addition being able to sign some of the related documents as the homeowner. But in doing so, you want to make sure you end up with it. Therefore, you're going to have to sell the property to another LLC, which you would control. You may happen to be the only bidder on the property, but that's one of the issues that some people encounter, and there's a lot of nuances. But again, I'm not providing legal advice. You may want to talk to an escrow company, and I would stress that whatever you happen to do, ask them in regards to it.
Okay. Would it be, just an additional thank you for that, would it be worth my time to pursue relationships with guys like you in order to access some of the guys that you know make the decisions for the notes discounts? Because I'm not a guy to take no or I don't know for an answer. So, like, just give me the raw answer.
No.
Okay.
What I mean by that is I do have a lot of different bank contacts. We do buy from a lot of different resources, many of which I'm willing to share, many of which don't have authorization to share. I promise you, a lot of the major institutional contacts in which I may possess, allegedly, really don't want to call from everyone in the world, as this is an industry that if one were to find, you can walk into any room and I have $50 million. No one cares. As you can have all the money in the world, but it's, again, buying quality, not just necessarily quantity. So it's a lot of relationships that are developed over time. Is that there's good deals all over the place, but yes, you can call in and ask about the status of a trustee sale. But unfortunately, a little bit more information than not, we're legally not able to provide inside information or alternative information which is not publicly available.
Thank you.
You talked about making sure that you're buying what you think you're buying, and that the first lien maybe is there or isn't there. How do you go about doing that?
Whether it's there or not is a matter of public record. We have purchased liens in which those liens were released. Those are traditionally when a full reconveyance or a satisfaction of mortgage is recorded. Whether it's fraud or not, that's the first mortgage's problem,
Okay.
not
and
yours.
So is it safe to assume if it's on a tape that the note is what it says, or no?
Nope.
Okay.
Absolutely not. We found a lot of Find some of those, Walter?
Pardon me?
You ever found where they told you there's a first mortgage and there wasn't?
Oh, yeah.
There we go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, Matt. With regards to due diligence, could you maybe go a little bit deeper into what you do pre-funding and post-funding when you're looking at maybe a pool of notes? How much do you do before you make the purchase,
The
and what do you do?
checklist, so to speak.
Yeah.
What I do is I look for yeses, as there may be a lot of reasons not to buy a note, but we're looking for multiple exit strategies. When does it actually pencil out? We'll evaluate the property and see, check it out, how much is owed on the first versus how much is the house actually worth. And in the event there's no equity, is that a no? Absolutely. We'll move on from there. Yes, the more no's is the closer we will look at some of these notes as to what options are available to us. So we'll look whether or not there's any equity in the property. Is it an active foreclosure or not? These are things that are very quickly and easily done. In the event we're provided a credit report, we will evaluate that, seeing whether or not the homeowner is delinquent, whether it's a performing loan, whether we feel there's some emotional equity within the property. Some people try to look up people on Facebook. Some people try to look them up on Google and a lot of other ways. That tends to be far more time intensive and that I have to dedicate to some of the notes that we possess. So we'll traditionally evaluate the equity within the property, the status of the first, whether or not it's performing or not, whether or not the property may be, because there's many properties in which we've taken a trustee sale and the homeowner still wouldn't work something out, but we can still rent it out and pay the first mortgage with that, or perhaps we can continue on and rent the property out, not paying the first mortgage, and making more than enough money back to cover our expenses, costs, and the initial investment, and sometimes more so than that. But hey, that's what we're talking about tomorrow. And we'll also look at, again, we'll evaluate the homeowner and the property. That's usually title, condition, how it looks, the location, desirability, the state in which it's located, how long it takes to foreclose within that state. Are we going to get our returns fast, like in Texas, how it can take 30 to 60 days? Or is it somewhere in New Jersey, New York, where it takes years? We'll evaluate other factors, like is it in one of the states where, perhaps the Attorney General's on a witch hunt for certain individuals, and they don't care whether you're Bank of America or you happen to be just an individual throwing in your money on a note. In some of those states that tend to be a little bit more high risk and high litigation, as there's a price tag attached to all of those things. We prefer notes that are in certain states. Traditionally non-judicial states is if you buy a note in a judicial state, you're going to be paying hourly attorney fees and costs, which tend to be significantly more. But like I said, there's a price tag attached to it. And if you want to know how much it is, call and ask. Guess what? Rand will tell you a little bit more about that on Saturday. But generally it's far less expensive than you can possibly think. And the returns tend to be very high, which is why I do this personally. And I do believe it's a very important question as to some individuals that are involved in this industry, whether it be as an attorney, whether it be as a trustee, anybody else, ask them why. If you don't do this, why not? I couldn't sit around and watch everyone else do this. That's why I do this. That's why I believe in it. And that's one of the reasons why I'm here, is I want to encourage others to have immense amounts of success. This is the friendliest competition you will likely ever encounter.
Matt, I think you said that as a foreclosure trustee, if you're foreclosing, if you're representing the first in foreclosure, you're required to send notices to the junior lien holders, send notices to the address in the top left-hand corner.
That's correct.
Of the assignment. Are you also required to send notices to the address of the assignee if the address is in the body of the assignment?
No.
Really? Thank you.
It's not a bad idea to do that. And as a conservative trustee, that's something which we may do. But is it required by law? The answer is no.
Okay. While I'm here, I just have to say that there are some people in this industry who are truly, truly outstanding. And Matt is right at the top of that list so far as I'm concerned.
Big round of
Thank you,
applause.
Walter.
Aaron, can I
Got
break
one
the
more?
rule and ask
One
a
more?
question?
Go ahead.
Sorry.
These are all people I've known for a very long time. I've encouraged them to come up here and grill me about various things, sincerely and honestly.
I'm going to keep you on your toes.
Just a little. I have a question in reference to something that we're seeing recently, that you actually, the borrower is getting a 1099 and the mortgage is still in place. Have you seen that more often within the last 6 to 7 months on some of the debt's been purchased?
It depends on the buy, in all honesty. In certain tapes that were acquired by some of the sellers, which some of whom may be familiar with, they acquired loans that were charged off and a 1099-C was issued as a result, not providing legal advice. As a foreclosure trustee, in the event that someone were to provide a 1099-C, that absolutely may mean the debt was forgiven in some way, shape, or form. But this is not a personal action. We're not foreclosing on an individual personally. As a foreclosure trustee, we foreclose on assessor parcel numbers and legal descriptions. We don't foreclose on people. There's a difference between the debt being owed personally and the debt being owed in regards to the estate. So while the homeowner may have been absolved of personal liability, and one may have the inability to sue them personally as a result, traditionally, as a foreclosure trustee, we do not have a problem with initiating and completing a non-judicial foreclosure action as a result, as it against the property, not the individual.
One other question. So how are you, not giving me legal advice, handling the homeowner that still wants to stay in the home and wants to work something out after that has happened?
Because I'm not telling you exactly what you should or should not do. That's just my understanding of it, which is not necessarily the law. I'm not quoting it or giving case examples within a variety of ways, but I've known that we have personally had no issues in regards to it, and that has been confirmed many times by our legal counsel, which, of course, in the event somebody does require legal counsel, ask those others within this room who they use. They'll probably tell you. And if not, ask us. We'll direct you over some good individuals who we use personally.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. It's always fun, isn't it? I'll take that. Please give Mr. Matthew Kelley a big round of applause again.